disgusting, cringy, bullying behavior. These are just some of the strong words from the online community describing a recent video of AirAsia's Thai CEO scolding a female employee during their town hall meeting. Is AirAsia really such a toxic workplace like what some people have proclaimed it to be? Or is this normal in any organization? Let's finally take a step back, drop our landing gear, and diagnose what really went wrong. Hey everyone, this is Mark Wong and I am your host for Career Banter, a brand new series discussing hot button issues in the workplace and practical strategies to help you take flight in your career. Now, if you're joining us for the very first time, welcome to our very first show. Now, if you've enjoyed our content, please go right ahead and share this video with your friends. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification so you're alerted each time we release a brand new episode. Now, on to our main story. When you think about the brand AirAsia, what comes to mind? I'm not sure about all of you, but I personally have always viewed AirAsia as one of the most successful and resilient brands in aviation, thanks to the leadership of a capable, charismatic leader like Tony Fernandez. But this image has been entirely turned over its head because of one video. Just one video that literally went on a rampage, making its rounds on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. In fact, just over a short span of just 1.5 weeks, that video has garnered close to 53,000 views on YouTube. Now, the most striking thing was the sheer amount of negative sentiment that the video brought about. And we thought it would be good to talk about it and to cast some objective light in a more professional way onto the matter. Now, if you've seen the video, that's great. But for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, let's have our producer, Sean, show us the footage. Sean, take it away. Oh, wow. I don't know about you, but I can still feel my heart pounding no matter how many times I watch this video. I really cannot imagine myself at the blunt end of the CEO's words. What about you, Sean?
Shut up, Mark. You talk to someone.
Sean. Now, you're in the wrong job. You're in the wrong job. You shouldn't be a producer for Career Banter. You should be a CEO. Just kidding, guys. Let's give Sean a round of applause for being such a great sport and for his hard work behind the scenes. It's never easy, right? You can show him some love, all right, by giving us a like. We want to see those likes coming in, and we like it. Now, one of the goals of our show is to discuss and analyze hot button issues in the workplace. And this recent incident at AirAsia is the perfect example of a case study we're going to explore a little bit in depth today. Now, I always believe that it's very important to look at an issue with objectiveness, right? By taking ourselves out of the negative sentiment that's brewing right now and to truly diagnose what exactly led to the issue, what went wrong, what could have been improved, and hopefully come up with some actionable solutions to prevent such a thing from happening again. That's exactly what we're going to do today. And to help us with that, we are privileged to have our resident career coach, Stephen Lu, as well as personality profiling expert and executive coach to C-suites, Rosemary Chan, to offer their professional insight. Stephen and Rose, welcome to our show.
Hi, glad to be here. Yeah, to joining in this Career Banter talk. Yeah.
Stephen,
thank you, Mark, for having us.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Stephen. Now, Stephen, you go first. Could you share a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm actually a principal consultant and trainer and coach as well in a company called Stevenson Hureca. So we actually provide training and corporate training and coaching services to companies. So here is basically a business that's been around for 10 years, and also we provide also WSQ training as we are authorized training service provider. Yeah. Okay. Rose, over to you.
Thank you. We kind of lost you, Stephen. your signal went down. So hi. Okay. So I'm Rosemary, and I have been with the adult education consulting, as well as practicing in the eyes of design thinking, for a couple of years now. And I'm here today because I'm pleased, to have brought identity into Stevenson, and how identity can be used as a personal profiling of values creation, for someone to discover who they are, right? So yeah, that's all I need to cover for today. Tell you more in the next series. Yes. Thank you.
Definitely, this is certainly not the first and last. We're going to be having more exciting topics in our upcoming episodes, I'm sure. Now, Rose and Stephen, as we have all seen in the video, right, it took a while before the female staff came to a point before finally directing the question to the Thai CEO. So the context of the town hall meeting was actually about AirAsia's acquisition of Gojek Thailand's operations. Now, of course, we all know that Gojek is a popular ride-hailing and payment platform. And the female staff, contrary to what some people might have thought, she's not a junior staff member. She's actually a senior manager from Teleport, which is a logistics company and subsidiary of AirAsia. So her question was, how would the partnership with Gojek impact Teleport? Now, Stephen, you've played the role of senior management before, and I'm sure there will be members on your team who are a little bit more, how shall I say, expressive, and will take some time before coming to a point. But do you think it's right for a CEO to slam and interrupt a less senior member in front of everybody?
Okay, Mark, let me just draw back the moment when I saw this Twitter so-called, topic, that the F-bomb that went around, right? My first instance when I saw the video, actually from the context itself, was just a short clip. And in my mind, well, I hear the F word, I hear the shut up thing, I also hear, what are you saying, So these three words, I believe, rhymes well with a lot of people when they see the short clip. Okay, so obviously I think people will certainly jump into conclusion and making certain assumptions, right? In my mind, it's basically, in fact, I didn't know that it was also a town hall. I thought it was probably a closed door meeting, closed door meeting, and then probably the video was kind of leaked out. But it was only subsequent that I realized, wow, it's a town hall thing. I said, wow, this is this is something that is certainly will create a lot of viral and a lot of news in the social media. Yeah, but then again, knowing AirAsia, how it's like, I think this could be something that maybe it's not planned, but obviously it has, whether negatively or positively, it has created a lot of visibility about the acquisition of this Gojek, and they're going into this food delivery business, right? This is in a way, the positive part is the publicity to let people know, which in a way, what they call kind of could balance up the negativity. But nonetheless, I think you're asking about what's the thoughts about a situation like this. I think for anybody viewing such a situation, I think most people will get shocked, and why a CEO level would kind of say such profanity, which is basically so-called shock to a lot of people, right? Now, unless we know the context of the situation in a wider scale, in the culture, and also the longer video of the clip, to really know the whole context of what went on, people can only make judgmental based on the short clip itself. Yeah. So in short, it's basically, like I said, for those who really want to examine the whole case, it's good to watch the whole video and of course look things from a different perspective, right? But again, if you were to drill down to the topic itself, whether it's right or wrong, obviously, as a senior executive in a company, certainly, and especially holding a town hall meeting, I think this is something not so encouraged, yeah, because it does create a very negative kind of thoughts and thinking among people, viewing that video. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your thoughts, Stephen. I'm sure everyone's talking about it and they would like to know, and maybe we could have Rose take on that as well, and Stephen, you could add on. Is such profanity and slamming of stuff common in companies? I mean, we can all feel very shocked about it, but is it common? Should we accept it?
Well, let Rose take the question first.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, I think I share same view as Stephen. I mean, seeing that video is really just a snippet, and I'm not sure why, such snippet has been, leaked out, for any other reasons. There must be some other reason why people are sneaking this out of Asia. And, in all my life that I've been working in IT firms, town hall has always been an inspirational point. Yeah. And it's always a time where, we always look forward to what our leaders have to share, and it is also our time for us to put our views forward, So it's always been a very nice thing, and we always have celebration too, and during town hall that we get free lunch, so it is something that we always look forward. So when we look at snippets like that, and with all the talks out there, I felt that it is I felt that people are always quick to jump to a conclusion, like what Stephen shared. And then personally, I feel that we are all human. So being human, we are capable to display or behave differently in different situations, and we all have a gamut of emotions and stuff like that, And so therefore, in this video itself, having profanities at town hall is always not acceptable, because when they do such thing, the culture will show, when the leader shows such behavior, and this attitude actually sets the tone for the organizational, attitudes and values. So unless, excuse me.
Rose, I hope your dog is not spewing profanity at you.
Yeah, maybe he says no, don't say anymore. Okay, so it's like, if such behavior is happening, at where the leaders are, it's actually setting a tone for everyone else to follow, and maybe that's why, when he said it and everybody just smiled, maybe it's nothing new, but as an outsider that we are watching such snippet, it becomes like a surprise, but maybe it's in the culture that speaks that way. Yeah. Over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, I echo also what this Rose just mentioned. But in essence, is that when you look at the video closely, actually the people in the video, the whole team members in the video were all smiling away. Yeah. Even the lady who was talking, she was very relaxed, and I think she was just communicating the way, despite the fact that the boss or the CEO then will just mention the F word. I think she probably may not have heard it too. But the rest have heard it. All right, but all said and done is that I think, in the context of the environment and everyone is smiling, I would assume that they are used to this kind of practices. Yeah, good or bad, I think it's not for us to comment. But I think here is basically, I think it's not something new. Looking at the way how people behave, and it's something accepted practice within the organization. Yeah. Otherwise, if it's something new, people will, their facial expression will show. But when the surrounding colleagues and members or regional team members comes in and just smile away, and even I think Tony himself was also smiling away. But of course, he was a group CEO. He's really relaxed and cool about it, and that goes to show that basically doesn't mean that he accepts this kind of practice. If you know that the aftermath was he was quickly apologize for what happened, and obviously he mentioned he kind of pulled aside to kind of counsel his colleague that this is something not acceptable, right? So obviously the recovery was made and apologies was extended out, and I think is that something. I think people has to be mindful that sometimes emotions get better of the situation, but it's always important to be mindfully aware, especially if you are in a town hall meeting and there are 500 audience watching you. Wow, you have to be even more mindful, right? Now, having said that, I think it's not, just to add on that, it's not uncommon in a lot of big organizations, especially for senior management, and especially in a very tense environment. Using profanity is not uncommon. Yeah, for those people who have not worked their way up to senior management side, just to let you all know that this is not uncommon. And in an environment where it's tense, yes, bosses sometimes senior exactly VP MDs do use this kind of thing occasionally. Of course, it's not something encouraged, but obviously when tense situation happen, like I said, emotion get better hand. Yeah, but it's important for executive itself to be self-aware about situation, and obviously it's not good to kind of practice too often. Otherwise, people may feel that it could become like a toxic culture situation. Yeah. So over back to you, Mark.
Mark,
No,
if I could
Rose.
have some time, if I could have some time, maybe I could explain better through the Johari window.
Sure. Maybe Rose, we could actually leave that for the next part of the
Sure.
segment. But I've always wanted to know from the both of you, right? If you were one of the senior managers, and if you see a staff being spoken down by the CEO, all right, what would you do? How would you react?
No, Mark, just explain. You're talking about as one of the team member, is it reporting?
As one of the team members, that's right. Or if you're if let's say one of your staff is being berated in a condescending way, would you stand up for your staff? Would you talk back and correct the CEO on the spot? Because that's what a lot of people are saying, right? Tony should step up and speak up for the female staff. What you do?
Yeah, so
Rose?
I did see, that people were just saying that Tony could have just stand up and really, just interrupted him. But I guess in this situation, as we could see, it went so fast, right? It is so difficult to actually stand up, and it's also very tough for Asian to tell another Asian, what they have done wrong right in front of 500 over folks, right? It is something that we can take it offline, and hoping that this could be something that people will just forget, and then do the apologies later, because it's not very nice to also wash dirty linens right in front of your other staff, because not forgetting that these are your -1, and -1 is as good as they are also your leader, your pillars, for all for the organization. So I guess as what Tony has done, it's not wrong, but he sort of subtly did tell him that you wake up, didn't you hear it, what she's just said, right? So it was a subtle way of telling him to just wake up, and yeah, maybe that's the point. So to me is that I don't think I would interrupt and get this dirty linen wash right in front of my 500 over people, who's watching in. But I'll just take this offline. But of course, apology will follow suit almost like immediately after that whole incident, rather than a few days time. So that's a bit too long. Yeah, that's my
I
take.
think for those. I think Rose, you've rightly put forth an observation, right? That I'm not sure if others have pointed it out, right? And towards the end of the video, in fact, I'm going to have Sean to show us the second part of the video, where Tony Fernandez was taking a very light-hearted jibe at the CEO, asking him to, that he missed the question. So it could suggest that maybe the CEO was not quite paying attention. So to enlighten our audience, we'll have Sean, once again, our CEO, Sean, right, to show us the second part of the video. Enlighten us, please, Sean. Yes, that's right. So that's the second part of the video. And I mean, earlier on, we all recall, Stephen, right? You mentioned that profanities are not uncommon in a workplace, especially in a high stress environment. But what do you think led to this type of culture being practiced and accepted in companies?
Well, I think having come from an IT industry background, you do hear stories about such situation, about where, especially in an IT environment where things are very dynamic and then competition are very keen, and especially when you are the head of a country, you need a country CEO or VP or region when you have to achieve your target, because in don't forget, in like a typical US MNC background, if you don't deliver your numbers within 2 quarters, you'll be out of job. Yeah. So having that in mind, you must always think about human basically have fear or flight, right? Fear factor down to the basic emotion of Maslow's law, right? You need your basic things and so forth. But then you can think back in the days of the caveman, what do they fear of? During the dinosaurs day, the cavemen with the spears, when they are looking for food all the time, right? But when something comes out, it's either fear or fight, or you fight, right? Or you fight, right? So this is a situation of a basic human instinct behavior come into play, right? When their job is at risk, what do? Right? You just want to kick butts around the people that reports to you to make sure that they back up and get the job done, because your own job is at risk, right? So this is a situation that happens, and I think people who are working for environment long enough, I think they will understand the severity of the situation, and what the boss is trying to get the message across is to really back up, shape up, and get things done. Otherwise, you guys will be kicked out before I do. Happens to me. Yeah, of course. I think the other aspect of it is about, I think bosses trying to show empathy in the very old school way. Yeah, the old school parents, right? What do they do when they want to show love and all that, right? They use a cane, they yell, they shout. That's our old school parents doing the same, right? Yeah. So the situation applies here. Obviously, you say that, oh, that's not so professional. When your job is on the line, there's no such thing as being professional or not, right? It's just like in family, right? You will just yell and shout and at your children or even with spouses and so forth, right? But then after a while, you patch up, right? You're still back together because you are family, right? So in this situation, you can view from that context is almost like a family environment, which I think Tony does with his team members. He always, if you read a lot of his write-ups and reports about he actually reduced a lot of layers among the organization. He treats everyone as a family. So if you look from that context, it's not that bad. Huh? Today you have a bit of row, but tomorrow you catch up. You still love each other again, right? Right. So in short, it's basically, I think, for people who have not seen that situation, I think they should first of all don't jump into conclusions. Situations of so-called emotions get better of the hand could happen, and like I said, this could happen a number of times in the past before. And then obviously, the CEO himself, obviously, perhaps, like I said, he's just been habitual of himself doing the same thing over and over again. And it's also somehow that he was a bit impatient with this lady, all right. And I think that kind of thing just came out, right, in the situation. Yeah.
Okay, I think I have something to add to what Stephen said, right? About empathy, right? The thing that we could see that, maybe the CEO is also trying to save some time, for somebody to just go on trying to, go around the bush before delivering a question, like how Tanya could have done in just one sentence. And everybody is now, in this pandemic, everybody's on screen all the time. He's just saving some time for everyone else, So it could be that, he is, it is his own way of saying that, don't be too long-winded, like just ask us for the question and that's it, Otherwise the meeting is going to go on and everybody's just going to be so tired. You get Zoom fatigue and everything. So it could be the other way around, It's his empathy for the rest of the people. Yeah.
Now, go ahead, Stephen.
Okay, just to add on to that as well, I think this is a skill where a lot of executive and up and coming managers to senior managers really need to learn, especially engaging a senior executive CEO level, right? Number one, they need to be sucking, yeah. They need to be able to formulate the questions even before seeing the CEO, so that it's sharp and straight to the point. And especially when they communicate to this senior executive, right? They have to be what they call slow, loud and clear, and also in terms of the questions. If you observe the lady, she was actually going around very positively, but talking very engaging. But then, if people are not used to that pace, they lost her. What is she trying to say? Can you, And sometimes, this is how, especially if even you're talking to a Caucasian or a Western person, right? You'll find it difficult for Asian to understand. All right, and way back, I can just share that in the past when during my younger days when I went abroad to study, and as usual, I speak my typical Asian kind of language, right? English lah. You don't pronounce so clearly, you speak a bit fast. And you know what happened? My schoolmate, he's a tall guy. I had to look up to him and say, "Steven, can you speak slow, loud, and clear?" Oh wow! Since then, in a high school stage, I start thinking, wow, I had to start learning to do that. And it's a good thing that I learned early, right? And that's why, and it's why it's so important, especially, and it's so profound and important, especially for managers and upcoming managers moving to the next level, right? They have to be sucking, slow, loud, and clear, right? So there's no bullshit and no going around hitting around the bush, right? So I think again echo what this Rose has mentioned. Tanya, obviously is a learned person. She could just round the whole topics what this the other lady was trying to say in one short sentence. Period. That's it. And the message get across, right? And you can just imagine if you're a CEO or executive dealing with a person like this, go round and round and round, won't you get frustrated? And I can imagine it's not the first time she's dealing with her. All right. Obviously, she's trying to obviously coach her, but not in a very empowering way. It's very fatherly way. Shut up. Stop. I would say it's like fatherly to a daughter kind of situation. So I think people should not read too much into the thing and try to make judgmental. I think they're still a family. They're working very closely together. And of course, I think to create a more healthier environment, we could only suggest and encourage, and obviously, I think to be more empathetic, and obviously to provide coaching for the team as well. Executive coaching for the team in terms of how to communicate better, how to convey the message better, and then likewise, because when that happens, when you go to a meeting, it can be such a meeting can be more productive and short rather than going through round and round. And this is not uncommon in a lot of companies. We have a lot of problems where people go into the meeting round and round, and after 3 meetings, 3 weeks later, still don't have the answer. Yeah. Okay.
Now, thank you, Stephen, for your insights. Let's talk about the female employee a little bit, which I think nobody has really addressed, other than saying that she's long-winded, right? If you actually listen closely to what she said, all right, the quality of her comment is actually not shoddy, right? It has some merit in it, and she definitely warrants some respect from all of us. Now, so what did she say? Right, if you recall, she mentioned that the company can get immediate access to a large rider pool, as rider recruitment can be tough, right? And it also speeds the growth of her rider base, and it improves last mile capabilities in Thailand. So she actually knows her stuff. Now, Rose, as a personality type profiling trainer, what can be said about her type as well as the CEO's personality?
Thank you, Mark. Okay, you see, even if I know personality and I know, about values and stuff, I don't think it is wise for us to actually judge, or even, even for me to say what kind of personality, because, in our work, in what we do, we always have what we call a modified behavior. Okay, why modified is because we need to suit to the environment that we are working with, or in, and that's what we do, right? And in this modified behavior is something that, you either, try to hold it as long as you can, or you might just lose it. So in the case of a CEO, right, I think it is very tiring for him to hold himself, to be the prim, the proper, the guy who speaks well, and so he might lose it, and go into what he always does, in that fatherly manner. But because I understand that he's not a pure Thai, he's a mix of Thai and even I think, if I'm not wrong, is Dutch. Yeah, he has a Dutch blood. Yeah, so I guess he does have that Western influences. And how our beliefs and value system, how when we were young, and how and the environment actually mold our beliefs, our values. So so he has that Western side of him. So if you allow me, I can show the Johari window to explain further, so that so that we don't judge about a person's character or personality.
Sure,
If you
we're happy
allow me
to
to do so.
this little mini masterclass from Rose here on the Johari window. I have no idea what it is, so let's have Rose enlighten all of us. Take it
Okay,
away,
let
Rose.
me just show you. I
Okay.
prepared something, and I hope you all can see this.
Yep, we're good. Yep,
Yeah?
yep, looks good.
Okay. So what's happening here is that, so I represent this profiling tool called Identity. It is a very simple 20 question that actually helps you to discover, your values. So values are always something that we have in us, through our belief system, from how we were molded, or things that we have been exposed. That gives us our values, that also, actually gives us the attitude and behavior that we are showing on the external end, right? So when we are judging, we are actually judging what we are seeing. But is that the actual values or their beliefs? That are choices that people have to make based on how they are looking at the environment or the situation. So let me just go quick into the Johari window. So basically, it's a 2x2 matrix, where you talk about knowing yourself and unknown to yourself, and known by others and unknown by others. So what I mean by known by self and known by others, that means this is very open. If you take a look at the iceberg, those that are being exposed, okay, those are open area that we can see, that's the iceberg, that is towards. And if you're driving, or you're actually sailing towards it, you know that you're going to have a blockade because of the iceberg, things that we can see. All right, those are open areas. Whereas unknown by yourself, or not but is seen by others, are behavior that you have shown, but you may not have known it. It could always be our blind areas. And normally this is the area that, when we go for a performance interview and stuff like that, and your bosses or even your peers will say, hey Rose, it seems like you have been rather be rather upset over things very easily. What is upsetting you? But you may not know that you're showing that upsetness, right? And this is true feedback that others are feeding back to you, and you realize that, I've been exposing myself in that area. This is pretty much a weak area of mine, right? Then the other area that is hidden, that means unknown by others, but known by myself. So for example, right, a person may seem to be very extroverted, they are mixing around, socializing, but when after work, this person would just want to go home, right? And why? It's because they need to do a recharge. You know how if you mask yourself to be an extrovert, but internally you are actually an introvert, you might just need to have that recharge, because you're masking yourself just to be blended into that situation, or to the job that is demanding of you to be an extrovert. Okay, so it's known to yourself, but it's unknown to others. The other last one, okay, is really about unknown areas. Okay, when you're talking about unknown areas, you're talking about things that you may not know, and others also don't know. Okay, so how do you actually find out about this? Because being aware of yourself is very important. Okay, and this being aware of yourself can only be known to you through others' observation, okay, and they tell you, and there's a aha moment, or shared discovery. So sometimes, when we are discussing or we are doing some sports together, and then you didn't realize that, you seem to have a flair in certain thing. So you discover it together, right, while you're doing an action. Or you could also have your own self-discovery, something that you discovered when you are maybe working on something. Okay, so these are the various ways. So there are four windows, right, that you would be able to know about yourself as well. And this knowing yourself is really, really important, because that will also beef up where your weaknesses are, and then there are certain strengths in certain situation or environment that you need to bring it down, right? So that is something that is important. And then the other thing I like to also share that, when you enter an organization, in this case, you need to know that your leaders' way of working, they are either, this is, when you are knowing your leaders or knowing who you work with, how they are working, how they think is very important. So in identity, it reveals to you how you think through the flexibility trait, exposition trait, organization thought, and how you work, through the effort that you're seeing, the timeliness, the determination, quality, as well as how you relate. That means how you having that relationship built. Is it low in affection? Whether you have affection, you're empathetic, you're sociable, and how's your loyalty attachment where you're relating to people. Or you could also show, how you lead. So how you lead is also very important, because if a person who is very dominant, right, it will show that, the person needs to actually draw the boundary. So when you're drawing a boundary, then you know that, you need to really ask for permission even before you even, touch their things or even open up to speak to them. Okay. So when you know these traits, you will also know, whether they are task focused or relationship focused. So in leadership style, these are very two distinct styles. So in the case of this CEO, we could actually tell that he's very task focused, right? And in relationship, maybe on a personal note that we are not seeing, like how they are treating each other as a family, like what Stephen has shared, then that is very relationship. So where on the work front, he is very task focused. So when you're task focused, he is likely to be very objective in how he does things. He's very fairly organized, because when you're in the town hall, first thing that you need to do is you have time, you need to watch your time, you have agenda, and you also thoughts, right? Low flexibility means, very low risk. That means you cannot allow things to happen at that time during town hall. So you need to have that, that really, that structure for it to goes on, right? It takes a lot of hard work just to have it organized. High time is very important, right? And such as this, right? This will actually expose them to a very task-focused kind of manager. When a person is really relationship focused, you'll find that the CEO is really very human centric in the way they are communicating. Okay, because they really have that high affection. They want to know how how they are relating to you. They want to look in your shoes. So everything is very human centered, right? And these are the people who are very relationship focused. So there are two kinds of leadership in here. Okay. Last but not least, I I think for us is to share with everyone that, going into a career or choosing an organization is really your choice. Okay. And it is your choice to understand who are you dealing with, what kind of organization you're going in, So how often do we hear people, at the end of interview, when the interviewer to ask an interviewee, do you have any questions for us? Most time we will say that no, we don't have any more questions, and that's it. But why can't we ask more questions, like, understand a bit more about the person that you're going to work with, how long the person has been with the organization, right? And whether the leaders have practice open door concept, because that tells you a lot about the leaders that you're working, because they are all kinds of leaders out there, but the worst kind is really working for leaders who have the dark side. Okay, and the dark side really mean that, you know, instead of very altruism in the way they do things, they are very narcissism, right? So these are things that we need to know. Who are we working with, and who can you deal with, and if you can handle such leaders. Over to you, Mark.
All right, what a masterclass that was, guys. If you really enjoyed Rose sharing, please give us a like. We want to see those likes coming in. Now, Stephen, do you agree with what Rose just shared? What's your take on that? How do you manage the different type of personalities in such an environment, Stephen?
Okay, I think maybe I just draw some from personal experience. I think what would help audience to understand is basically all of us can evolve and change along the way. Can I just share a story with you when I was younger? I was headhunted to head a division in Malaysia. And in a short span of time, I grew the business. And of course, I get promoted and become a country head. And I was managing a team of about 40 to 60 headcount, grew to that level. And then, you know, it's like I was 3 years down there, and actually, it was actually an IT business, using all these laptops, servers, desktop machines, and so forth, right? It was for a listed company in Singapore, right? Now, yes, I as a young executive then, I was in my early 30s, and I have to grow the business. I have to grow the headcount. I have to grow the so-called branding. It was like building Rome overnight, yeah. And I have to work almost like 15, 16 hours a day, yeah. But it was fun. It was engaging. It was because you're really building and getting things happening. Those are good fun and activity when you have a team that's actually cohesive and growing as well. But the challenge that I didn't have that luxury. I have to hire uh, young graduates that probably easy to mold to the kind of personality that I would like them to have. And I also do hire mature people, and mature people comes in all kind of sizes and culture. It was such a difficult feat. They have their own thinking. It was much easier managing a team of young graduates that that I can kind of mold and to the kind of expectation that I want them to be, right? Now, having said that, the challenges comes is when you have so-called challenges of meeting numbers to satisfy headquarters and my bosses, right? So, and this is where, and then you try to get things done, and those senior mature guys are just woody. They're just somehow unable to move, right? Then I must say that in the past, yes, I do use profanity as well as a young executive. I was in my early 30s. Can you imagine when things are not moving? So the thing is that how do you kick butts and get people to move? Yes, I do that as well. Yeah. And obviously it's not something that I enjoy, and it's only through a lot of hit that I went through that I have no choice that I have to use that just to get the awareness up, because you may say, oh, Stephen never yell and shout. This time he yell and shout, and he used profanity. Something must be serious. It's not something I do often, but when I do it, they get the message across, right? So I use it to get the message across, and of course they will start moving. And those who can't move, obviously I have to do the difficult part of doing, what they call, doing the difficult part of letting them go. Right, so I just want to let you know that the situation is not going to change today. When you deal a lot, when people in this position that I had before have to go through that kind of thing. Like I told you in my earlier discussion, we're talking about the what you call the fear and the flight situation. Right, so it's no different. Now, of course, over the years as it evolved, and then I went on to an MNC environment, a big global US MNC environment, and there, wow, you have to be very careful with what you say. You have to have all the compliance you have to adhere to, and even the slightest moment that you have to talk to somebody about something else, words get around, gossiping goes around. So wow, I was a regional leader then for a software related business, and not only that, because the company was ahead of its time then, and basically employs 360 degrees view, right? 360-degree view, where he asks people from your senior level, from the people, your peers, and people will report to you, and even your partners to get a feedback of overall view and how your behavior is like. Can you imagine that when this kind of thing happens? Obviously, you have to behave, right? You have to behave in a way where everybody sees that you are consistently the same personality, whether you are, no matter what situation you're in. And that's why I must comment that there are certain a lot of things that are learned in organizations like this that employ so-called a cloud compliance. You actually basically mold your behavior to be consistent, right? And not only that, and also when you do your management meeting, when you have to drill your work with your team to go through the so-called the calls every week, the number of calls you have to go through every week. Hey, you really have to also be mindful and also know how to ask a question and know how to answer some of these questions, right? And executives in that level has been trained just to ask questions, right? And they ask you in a nice way. There's no profanity needed. When they ask you the questions, you can feel the chill in your bone if you don't need your numbers.
What's an example of a question? Share with us. Yeah.
What it is, for instance, if you're not meeting your numbers and you actually were sharing this, and very simple, Mark, what is your recovery plan? And you don't have a long period, right? I just ask you, what's your recovery plan within the next 1 month? You will tremble already if you are not prepared.
Buck up or leave, right?
Yeah, correct. You either ship up or ship up. That's the lingo that you use in the typical MNC, right? Within 2 quarters, if you don't deliver, situation is not going to look good, right? Of course, you can also practice like what Simon Sinek, the famous author speakers that the currency of it is very popular. Of course, it can be like him as well. You can say, Mark, how are you doing? Your numbers has not been meeting the last, 1 quarter, almost last 3-4 months. I'm worried about you. That's a very so-called empathetic way of showing concern, all right, but not in a very hard way, right? It's as a bit of love here, there's a bit of empathy. Hey, things will happen, but I'm sharing with you something that's important that needs to be done. Is anything that I can do for you? All right, that's a very empathetic way of communicating, right, for leaders, yeah. And so this is way, like I said, there are 2 extreme approach. Right, you want the hard knocks type, right? And basically the old parental, we call it the X generation way of coaching, team members, or you want the new generation. Obviously, the newer ways with the empathetic ways is good, right? But obviously, it must be built within the culture. Yeah, it cannot be done overnight. And obviously, for company want to go through the change, it has to start from the top or even the board of directors. Now, I must also comment that AirAsia is not a true MNC per se, like what a global. It's basically just a regional company. I would classify it basically more of a mid to large this SME category. So SME category, you'll find that there are a lot of also family businesses built to that level. And it's not surprising, even family business, yes, there's profanity being used. Okay, so I hope that gives a perspective of how different companies operate. And obviously, if those people who come from MNC, certainly we are not surprised the so-called, the judgmental be put across, because they may not be aware that, this could be a family-related, rather a very family kind of culture, kind of environment. Yelling and shouting is not uncommon, but after that, they patch up and be nice again, right? Nobody gets sacked, nobody get, it's just life continuing, right? It's just another one of those days, a bad day. Okay, back to you, Mark.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. Now, Stephen, earlier on you mentioned about your preference with working with younger graduates. Now, it sparked a question in me, right? And I'd like to invite our very handsome and very young Gen Z CEO, Sean, right, to our conversation. Right? So, Sean, do you agree what Stephen said? I mean, let's say if your boss, right? I mean, you're going to be entering the workforce after you graduate, right? So if your boss were to ask you to kick butt, to shape up, but he uses a bit of tough love on you, all right? Tough love. How would you react?
Well, I guess it also depends on the situation, right? Because I mean, if it's like it's a father to son kind of thing, I mean, it's a very relaxed communication. Like it's more open. There's no level of say professionalism like you have in a boardroom. It's something where you can connect more emotionally, and of course, that's more or less more important in a way, because you get to both sides get to understand each other much better. So I mean, yeah. So it really depends on how it is lah. What we are talking about as well lah.
Maybe Sean, you can comment from the context of doing your NS days, serving army, right? Obviously, there's a commander, the reporting officer. Things may not be so smooth and easy, right?
Okay,
Can you explain from the angle?
Well, I mean, for most Singaporean men, all of us definitely have went through the road of doing national service, right? So I mean, it's definitely where you get shouted at for things that you might not even have done wrong, and you can't really talk back in a way because immediately you are marked for, I don't know, confinement or for disobeying orders. So there are at times when you do feel helpless as well because, hey, I didn't do anything wrong. What's going on here? It's not me, it's him or whatnot. You know what I mean? So I mean, there was also once, I mean, a personal story of mine where our whole platoon were not allowed to purchase any items from the mini-mart, and it was because of I think it was some punishment or whatnot. Then just so happened the next day, because we were on a 1 week ban, our sergeant actually told us like, hey, who was the one that purchased the food yesterday? And then he straight away started to drill us and all for the entire afternoon. And like nobody was admitting it because it was definitely none of us. All of us were in bunk, and like I was the platoon IC at that point in time. So I was like, wait, what's going on? How can this be happening? I was there the whole time and no one left the bunks or left our whole platoon to do something else. So like when the sergeant was scolding and all, and the backstory was that it happened to be another platoon and the canteen auntie actually complained, saying that it was somebody from outside when she doesn't recognize any of us. Yeah, so at that point in time, I think it was about 10 to 15 minutes into the punishment, and no one was really admitting their mistake, which they shouldn't have because none of us were at fault. I actually stood up. I was like, hey, are you sure that it's one of us? Because if you cannot, because there's no point punishing us if it really isn't one of us. Like, I'm not saying that I'm disagreeing with your assumption or ideas, but would you like to find out who exactly the person is from the person who reported it to you, and then you can come back and rightfully punish us. If not, I think you might have made a mistake. Yeah. So I mean, eventually it turned out okay, and it really wasn't one of us. So thankfully, if not, I might have gotten into much bigger trouble. Yeah, but yeah, just a small story about it. So it really depends on context and maybe how you deliver the message as well. Because you can't be saying that, hey, it's none of us. It can't be any of us. Of course, definitely the superior definitely react differently to it. Like, no, you're lying. So I think you need to position it in a very rational kind of way, so that people understand you and they're willing to take like ideas from you, especially if you're someone who is of lower ranking. Like you need to really lay out your ideas and really state where you're coming from clearly, so that people will listen to you. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Sean.
Short is basically one has to speak up. Yeah, one has to speak up in a situation. All right, and then the important part is basically, yes, be prepared to accept responsibility and even punishment if you have done wrong, right? And that's where I think management, or even in the army, I think where leaders holds on to this integrity, responsibility, and accountability. So like it or not, I think professional level, no different. I think whether it's Gen Z or millennials, I think everyone should practice a kind of behavior. Of course, like I said, tense situation, emotional outbursts and all that is not uncommon, but I think important is to so-called be professional about it. And of course, if you are peer to somebody who does this, if we got emotional, I think as a peer person, like for instance, Tony to the CEO side, he obviously could not on the spot kind of tell him off in that way. He's basically uncool, right? It's probably is after the situation, just pull it aside, hey, let's not do that. And I think, I think that was a right approach, and he did it well. Yeah.
And I also vividly remember that Rose was suggesting that in such a scenario, you should always be very tactful, isn't it, Rose?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because the whole intent and purpose is to remain cool, and which is what Tony has managed to achieve. Of course, in a very lighter way of jabbing back at him, say, do you know the question or not? Right?
Yeah.
So there was a very light and Joe way of jabbing back, but the message is that, hey, let's not get so intense. Okay, relax.
I think it's a very good move, I would say, to shift Tony's to shift the whole intensity away to to another dynamic.
Yes. And after that, you notice that the whole atmosphere was quite relaxed, right? And
relaxed.
And obviously the discussion. If people have saw the video at the later part, they say, hey, it's just like a normal discussion. Is the intensity was a short burst, and that was it. It did not like went on continue battering the young lady, right? That was not the case. After that, thing was quite back to normal. It was just a normal kind of discussion. That's it. Yeah.
Now, one of the key objectives of Career Banter is to invite our guests to propose some solutions that companies who might be experiencing the same scenario to walk away with, right? So, to the both of you, Stephen as well as Rose, let's say if AirAsia recognizes its gaps, I think obviously it has, and is willing to embrace a cultural change, how would each of you, as management consultants, help to facilitate that? What recommendations would you put forth to help them? So perhaps we have Rose to go first. Ladies first.
No, I think for a change, we should let the men go first. Let me think about it.
Stephen.
Well, I think culture is something that you can't change overnight, and obviously I think we should not just narrow down to a company like AirAsia. I think let's just be general. I think for companies that's going through growth, they're bound to have issues of communications. They're bound to have issues of tension. They're bound to have issues of trying to so-called elevate their executive to the new so-called management know-how and experience. And that's where a CEO has, right, when they try to expand their businesses and so forth. And you need executives and managers that can actually deal with change, right? When things are normal, as per normal, there's usually not so much of issues, right? The issue arises when we go through change, and change is always difficult. Yeah. So I would recommend for companies that are going through this route of change, whether you're upsizing, downsizing, or even merger acquisition, it's always important to sort of frame up the expectation and requirements so that everyone knows their role and what they need to do. Because sometimes you're putting somebody who's not fit for the role is going to be a bit challenging because he or she may not deliver. And you could have a situation like that you can't even, for instance, communicate clearly to what the management are looking for. So I would say the company going through such changes environment, it's important for them to be trained on how to manage change. Yeah, that's one. Secondly is basically you also need to make sure that you have the right so-called managers, executives, or senior managers involved to basically be put in a place to manage the change. And third, of course, the communication skills, the ability to communicate right, using the right words, the right lingo is so critical, especially to put in the senior management team, so that there's no ambiguities, there's no confusion, even though that may arise from time to time, but that can be easily ironed out. And of course, it's also important to build in the emotional competency, because when you go through such change, all right, mental resiliency is much needed. And everyone must also understand their role and responsibility. Be patient, okay, but be resilient as well. And also knowing that going through change, there's always pain. Yeah, no pain, no gain. Yeah. So the key thing is, as I mentioned, there's a number of training, coaching that can be put in place to ensure that the companies are able to evolve and manage the change well and effectively. Yeah. So that's my what they call a suggestion. So what can be done? Yeah. Over to you, Rose.
Thank you, thank you. I think what's important to know that we are dealing with humans, and humans really make up the culture. I really like this quote from Nelson Mandela. He talked about no single person can liberate a country. You can only liberate a country if you act as a collective. So to change a culture or to change to go through a transformation, you need everyone to be involved. And as we know that today that we are all made up to be very different. There are people who can accept change. There are people who don't accept change, in terms of the traits that we are holding. And there are people who can express better than others. There are people who can organize better than others. So what we need to do is we need to know who we are dealing with. It's good that the whole organization gets to know, about your own traits first. I mean, self-awareness of who you are and how you can contribute to that change. And, as a team, as a group, we contribute to the culture or the change that we want to do. Yeah.
All right.
That's
Maybe
my
just
take.
to add on another quote, since you mentioned Nelson Mandela, he's also a highly respected, leader. Yeah. Now, of course, Nelson Mandela has a mentor and guru as well, and the name is Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah, and that's where Nelson Mandela learns the philosophy of how to create change. Mahatma Gandhi has a very famous quote. His quote is basically be the change to the world, right? And it starts with yourself. And that's why if you learn the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi, actually he was able to bring the British empires down to his knees by adopting this philosophy of ahimsa, non-violence, right? And that's what he basically perpetuated into the whole what they call India. And people submit, but no violence, but wanting to have a change, right? And that's amazing, right? That's amazing. So I think in short is that I think all of us, whether you're in company, big or small, all right, you want to effect change. Obviously, I think you have to start with yourself, including the bosses. Yeah. So once collectively everyone comes together, big things can happen, and it can actually move mountains. Okay. So that would be my last quote to share with the team.
And what a quote it is. Thank you so much, Stephen, and Rose as well for your astute insights. All right, everyone, it looks like we've come to the end of the show. But before we close, I would like to share these takeaways from today's conversation. So first, there are two sides of the coin, right? And what you see or hear may not necessarily reflect the most accurate picture, as we all learned today. Now, we should also not use our judgment to narrow people's personality traits, as Rose shared with us earlier, but to also to seek to understand them before coming to a conclusion. The second takeaway is, at least for me, is in tense environments, the use of strong language, unfortunately, right, or fortunately for some of you, I don't know, it's not uncommon. But yet we should always exercise self-control and communicate in a way that earns respect and perhaps even loyalty from our own colleagues, no matter your seniority. And the last takeaway is, and I feel that is the most important, for those of you who may hold a less senior level, maybe you might be a fresh graduate as well. Communicating clearly is an important skill to learn. And you should always keep your messages short, succinct, and to the point, especially if you're presenting an idea or a question to your boss at a meeting. The same goes for senior management as well. If you think that there might be some gaps in your leadership style that you would like to address and improve, a great way would be to seek executive help. Now, there are some links below this video that we encourage you to check out so you can seek the right help you need to take your career to the next level. Stephen and Rose, it was definitely an amazing conversation. And it's been such a great pleasure to have you with us today. And to our audience back home, we want to hear your thoughts as well. Have you experienced the same thing in your organization? How would you react if you were in the shoes of the female staff? What would you do? Or perhaps if you're a leader on your team, how would you facilitate your own meetings? Go right ahead and share your comments so that we all can learn together as one united family. Now, if you've enjoyed our show and think that there's somebody or colleague, or friend, or family member could benefit from our insights, please feel free to share our video. And as you do that, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss the next episode. Until then, this has been Mark Wong for Career Banter. Stay safe, stay positive, because success is just around the corner. Until the next episode.